Some of you might be tired of hearing me talk about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, but I truly think this is one of the most important issues of our time. I mean, just think about what is going on here. The United States government is rounding up innocent people and shipping them off to a gulag down in El Salvador. And up until now, it really feels like this story hasn't been getting the news coverage that it deserves. And I've even been pretty upset with the Democrats because it feels like they have been very hesitant to talk about anything that might come close to touching the topic of immigration. But all of that has kind of shifted over the past week. We have Democratic lawmakers who are finally standing up and speaking out about what is going on here. And we even had the senator from Maryland travel down to El Salvador just to check and see if Kilmar Abrego Garcia is even okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Chris Van Hollen found out while he was in El Salvador. And we're going to start things off by him asking the correct question. If there's no evidence from the United States or El Salvador, why is an innocent man still being held in this prison? And I will warn you guys, this is a bilingual interview, so it's English, time for translation, back to English. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Now, the courts of the United States have said there's no evidence to support the charge that he's part of MS-13. So I asked the vice president whether or not El Salvador has any evidence that he's part of MS-13 or has committed a crime.
Así que la pregunta que le hice yo esta mañana al vicepresidente Ulloa es si El Salvador tiene pruebas de que el señor Abrego García sí es miembro de la MS-13.
So I asked the vice president if Abrego Garcia has not committed a crime, and the U.S. courts have found that he was illegally taken from the United States, and the government of El Salvador has no evidence that he was part of MS-13. Why is El Salvador continuing to hold him in CCOT?
This is the exact right question to be asking. The Trump administration has provided no evidence at all that this guy has been convicted of a crime, that he's even being accused of a crime. They have not been able to prove that there is any gang affiliation, even though that is the story that they keep on telling the rest of America. They have provided no evidence in court that that is actually true. And to the contrary, we know that in 2019, Kilmar Abrego Garcia went before an immigration judge where he was granted protective status in the United States. So the United States government wasn't allowed to deport him. But this Trump administration overlooked all of that and sent him to El Salvador anyway. So Chris Van Hollen is exactly right to be asking, if there's no evidence of a crime, why is he still being held here? And here he is describing the answer that he got.
And his answer was that the Trump administration is paying El Salvador, the government of El Salvador, to keep him at CCOT. And I pointed out that neither the government of El Salvador nor the Trump administration has presented evidence to support the claim that he's committed any kind of criminal acts. And so why not release Abrego Garcia today?
Exactly. Why not release Kilmar Abrego Garcia today? He's an innocent man. There's no evidence to prove that he's done anything criminal. He's not a gang affiliate or gang affiliated. Why not just release him? And the Supreme Court already ruled in a unanimous decision that the Trump administration needed to facilitate his return. So if Kilmar Abrego Garcia was released from CCOT, the Trump administration could transport him back to the United States. But the only answer they have is, oh, well, Trump is paying us to house this guy, so we're going to have to house him. What kind of nonsense is that? We have a couple of authoritarians palling around together, playing games with the Supreme Court of the United States, all while an innocent man is locked up in a notorious prison. I mean, this is absolutely so un-American. And they keep on giving you this story that he's some violent gang member, he's some violent criminal. Bukele said that he was some terrorist. And then he went on to say, oh, well, how am I going to smuggle a terrorist back into the United States? Even though nobody is asking him to do that. And Chris Van Hollen hits on that point here.
And he said what President Bukele said the other day at the White House, which that El Salvador can't smuggle Mr. Abrego Garcia into the United States. And I said, I'm not asking him to smuggle Mr. Abrego Garcia into the United States. I'm simply asking him to open the door of CCOT and let this innocent man walk out. And I pointed out that the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, has said that the United States would send a plane to El Salvador to pick him up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Pam Bondi did say that. After the Supreme Court decision came down, she tries to argue that, oh, well, we can't be compelled to go do this. They just meant we need to send him a plane. We need to facilitate his return. Well, that is exactly what needs to go on here. I mean, I just cannot get my head around that the Trump administration ignored the court order. They ignored all due process. They ignored a previous court from the first Trump administration that said Kilmar Abrego Garcia deserved protective status in our country. They ignored that all. Also what? So Donald Trump didn't have to look weak by admitting that he made a mistake, even though they've already been into court and admitted that a mistake had been made? I mean, just think about how grotesque this is. The Trump administration just thinks they can do whatever the hell that they want to do, right? And if you strip due process rights away like this, who's to say you're not going to be next? Who's to say I'm not going to be next? If you're not given legal recourse, if you're not given a process to refute the claims that the government has against you, who's to say that they're not going to start sending American citizens, which Donald Trump is already opining about, already looking into the laws to see how we could do that. They are coming for American citizens next. That's why it's so important that we stand up and fight for Kilmar Abrego Garcia now. And we already know that we don't have any evidence that the Trump administration is even trying to comply with the Supreme Court order.
There's no evidence that they're complying with that order. In fact, the United States Embassy here has told me they've received no direction from the Trump administration to help facilitate his release. So the Trump administration is clearly in violation of American court orders. But that still leaves the question, why is the government of El Salvador continuing to imprison a man where they have no evidence he's committed any crime and they've not been provided any evidence from the United States that he's committed a crime?
Every single person who has been involved with this deportation effort, removal effort, kidnapping, disappearing effort of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, they should be criminally charged for what is going on here. You have a Trump administration, stripped all due process rights away, is now ignoring the Supreme Court of the United States while an innocent man is locked up in an El Salvadorian prison. Every single one of them needs to be criminally charged. These are human rights abuses. And now we have We have word from the United States Embassy that there's been no coordination at all, not even a phone call, to even get an update on Kilmar Abrego Garcia, which is why Chris Van Hollen actually traveled down to El Salvador. He wanted to get a face-to-face meeting with Garcia. He wanted to check on his health to make sure that everything was on the up and up, which is kind of what he describes in this next clip here.
I don't know about his health status. That's exactly why I wanted to meet with him directly. That's why I wanted to talk to him on the phone. That's why I want to arrange a phone call with his wife. I mean, this is a notorious prison. And the family, this is a guy, again, he just got disappeared off the streets of Maryland. He ends up in, I'm sorry. This is why I wanted to see him. I also.
So Chris Van Hollen was not able to see Kilmar Abrego Garcia, was not even able to get him on a phone call. The vice president, the person that Van Hollen met with, said that we would need to coordinate something in advance. But when he asked if he could come back next week to arrange something, there was no promises there either. So now we have an innocent man sitting in an El Salvadoran prison, and we don't even know if he's okay. We don't know anything. He hasn't been able to talk to his family. He hasn't been able to talk to the senator here. This should be terrifying to each and every American. Even if this guy was the worst criminal in the world, which he is not, this should be terrifying to you. If the government is just allowed to start rounding people up, they don't have to prove any of the claims that they are making against you, who's to say that you will not be next? If there's no due process, American citizens could get swept up in this quote-unquote deportation effort, and you'd have absolutely no recourse. That is not how things are supposed to work in the United States of America. We are supposed to be better than this. Even for the Trump administration, this is extremely, extremely cruel. And Chris Van Hollen rightfully pleads to Bukele to do the right thing here.
I'm asking President Bukele, under his authority as president of El Salvador, to do the right thing and allow Mr. Abrego Garcia to walk out of a prison, a man who's charged with no crime, convicted of no crime, and who was illegally abducted from the United States.
Illegally abducted from the United States. That is the perfect way to characterize what is going down here. People are being disappeared from the streets of America. This is the kind of shit we used to warn other countries about. This is the shit we used to warn, authoritarian regimes around the world. We would warn that this is the kind of stuff that they would do. And now it's the United States of America that is engaged in these horrific acts. And you have a president of the United States who doesn't even seem to care at all. And you've got his little pen pal, Bukele, they're just playing games. Oh, I don't have the power to do anything. Then Trump said, oh, I don't have the power to do anything. This is absolutely unacceptable. Donald Trump should be impeached. He should be criminally charged for human rights abuses. And every single person who was involved in this effort should also be removed from their office and criminally charged. I'm just so happy that this is starting to pick up steam. The Democrats are starting to wake up and realize what is actually going on here, and they are starting to speak out against it. I am so grateful that Van Hollen actually traveled down to El Salvador to see what is going on, because this is what this story needs. It needs to be top of everybody's mind, and doing things like this, traveling down to El Salvador to check on Kilmar Abrego Garcia's health, that will elevate the story. The American people cannot ignore it if it's in all of their news feeds, right? So I think this is the exact right thing to do. Van Hollen is doing what should be done. He's doing whatever is in his power to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And now we're seeing other Democrats as well trying to get some sort of delegation to travel down to El Salvador as well. So I'm grateful for all of that. And we all, me and you, need to do our best to keep this story top of mind. Because like I said, if they can do it to somebody they consider on the out group, who's to say that they're not going to do it to American citizens next? If there's no due process, that is what will happen. And we should all reject this hands down and push back in any single way that we can. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We're trying to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against the right-wing media ecosystem that just kind of ferments that MAGA brain rot that is currently plaguing our society. So if you do like what you see here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. It is free. And if you guys want to see how Bukele and Trump were just kind of palling around in the Oval Office while ignoring the Supreme Court order, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.